Hey guys, thank you
Morning.
so much for tuning in. It's Etcetera live on the Vibe here. I'm your host, Kelly Barrett, and absolutely beyond thrilled today to have Jim Gilmour from SAGA here. Hey Jim, how you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Living in a pandemic in a big city,
Where are you living right now, Jim?
Toronto. Toronto.
Toronto, nice, yeah. But you know the good thing about the pandemic is you guys have certainly made the most of it. Coming out with your 23rd album, Symmetry, which we're going to get into talking about here in a little bit. Jim, can we just, it's kind of unfortunate with the pandemic that we couldn't have the entire band here. So before we talk about the album, I just want to go back and, give a little shout out to the other guys, Michael, Ian, Mike, and Dusty. They can't be here today. Do you want to just give us an overview, Jim, of the rest of the guys in the band?
What they do?
But just an overview about them.
Oh, well,
We know
Mike.
what they do, but I just want to give them a shout out because they can't be here. So go ahead.
Hey guys, Dusty, Mike, Michael, Ian, and Jim. Hope you're doing okay today. I usually talk to you almost every other day, so
Perfect. So, Jim, you joined the band in '79 and 1979, and then of course you were on the debut. Your debut album was Silent Night. Give us a little background on yourself, Jim. Like, what was it that made you get involved in this business and choose keyboards specifically?
I didn't choose any. It just kind of chose me.
It
But
chose you.
yeah, no, I was in University of Toronto studying music. So, and I was actually going to opera school, and then I had to take a year off because I had my tonsils out. It kind of ruined my voice. So I put together a band, my first band, and we were all guys from university that also took a year off, and we did all the progressive stuff like Gentle Giant and Yes and UK and stuff like that. And anyway, that lasted 6 months, and I was going to go back to university. And Saga's manager called me, and I went and met Jim and Michael. And next thing you know, Jim phones me up, said, "Welcome to the situation." So I never
The
went back.
situation.
I didn't. I never got my bachelor's of music. So
Well, that's quite all right. We're glad that you made this choice, and you know, 44 years SAG has been going, and you probably never could have imagined when you got that call and you joined the band that how big things would be, like how huge this would have become.
no, I thought maybe it would last another 6 months, and I'd be back in university
Right, tail between your legs.
again.
And thank God that never happened. The band won a Juno Award in '82 for being, the breakthrough group of the year. And we can talk on and on about, 23 albums, gold albums, platinum albums, over 8 million albums sold worldwide. And you really have a lot of fans, not only just in Canada, but really a lot of huge fan base in Europe.
Yeah, Europe and Puerto Rico, of all places.
I heard about is there a story about a riot in Puerto Rico, Jim?
Oh yeah, we were playing this big baseball stadium, sold out, and it held, I don't know, 20, 30,000 people. I don't know. But there was thousands and thousands of people outside that couldn't get in. So they were breaking through the walls because,
Wow.
yeah, they had to bring the fire engines in, and they hosing them down.
that
And yeah, pretty wild.
That must have been one for the books, hey? It must have been a little bit scary, I'm imagining.
Yeah, it was, and they were setting off fireworks, and they were coming towards the stage, and I remember going like this, crazy.
When all fell, stand in front of the gear.
Yeah, and a
Right.
similar thing happened in Venezuela. And we played some big stadiums down there, and there was similar incidents down there too. People were
Just
building
great.
bonfires inside and jumping over them.
Inside. Well, I think Canadians are a little more laid back, I'm thinking, but
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to get
right.
them
And
to stand up.
So, and Jim, and you guys have a huge fan base in Germany.
Yeah, all over Europe, but Germany definitely, and it always has been from day one. And I don't know why, but that's the first album got imported into there, and it just caught on. So
I have kind of a theory as to why. I was thinking about that, and I think, and this is just my theory. I think Europeans are, they're subjected a lot more to more, orchestral type music and classical music and stuff, maybe more so than North Americans. So I'm not surprised at all that you would be huge over there.
yeah, that's what I've always thought a bit too. So
Right. And so, SAGA has this wall of, I just call it this wall of sound. And the one thing that I really love, Jim, about SAGA is I'm a huge fan of lyrics, and I'm a huge fan of lyrics that can give imagery, immediate imagery, and take me on some kind of visual journey. And SAGA songs certainly do that. It literally is just a wall of sound, and it's very intelligent music. And um, who is the prime, like, what is the writing process like for you? For the band SAG as well? Is it a collective? Is it a collective effort?
yeah, usually we all write individually, and then we have a meeting, in a hotel room or wherever we're all together when we're about
Right.
to do an album, and we go through everyone's ideas, and it can take hours and hours and hours,
I'm
and
sure.
usually Michael's the one with a notepad writing. Well, this might make a good intro. This might make a good verse from another, and we just take all the best ideas and start whittling them down and working on them from there. It takes quite a while.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, no, I'm sure it's quite the process. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the chapters.
Yeah,
I,
I can.
I just the whole concept of that to me is just fascinating, and I just think it's ingenious. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about how that came to be?
Well, that's Jim's idea, Jim Crichton. When the band started, it was an idea to put chapters on each album and put them out of sync to keep people interested enough to buy the next album.
But
You
it was
know,
a puzzle of sorts. It was meant to be sort of a puzzle of sorts.
yeah. And then on the first album, like there's chapter one and chapter I can't remember, and then the second album there's two more, and then the third album where I came in, I helped to write chapter seven, and yeah, and they're mainly just a thing to get people interested enough to hopefully buy the next album, and it kind of worked. So,
Great, great idea, and because the chapters weren't necessarily put out and released in order,
no, they weren't. They're purposely put out of order. So
hence the puzzle connection, and
yeah,
so it's inspired by Cold War and the preservation of Albert Einstein's brain. Just some interesting concepts
yeah,
behind it, and the
and
self-destruction of humanity.
the big bug on the first album cover, he appears all over the place. Our fans have affectionately named him Harold, and
Harold.
I don't know why, how they came up with that. We didn't.
Bud,
We
Bud,
used
Bud just looks like a
used to
Harold,
just call him GB, Golden Boy, and
right?
so, but the fans named him Harold, and it's stuck. So yeah, he's got a big part to do with the destruction of the world. So
He's a mighty bug.
hopefully not this year.
Right. And so your last tour, Sega's last tour was the spring of 2020, and kind of a farewell sort of tour. Do you miss the touring, or have you kind of had enough of it?
Though the
That's a
last,
lot of touring.
what was meant to be the last tour was 2017, and then and then Jim has since retired from live touring, but he's still working. He was a big part on the Symmetry album, but we did a tour last February, March, and then we had in Europe, and we had all the year planned, and of course everything got shut down. So been sitting around for exactly a year because I came home March 14th we had to cancel 4 shows, so we got off pretty lucky. So
Right. Yeah.
this
No. Yeah. It was
kind of,
exactly a year ago.
yeah, March 14th, we came home. I went to the pub on the 15th to see all my friends, and then I was expecting to go to St. Patty's Day on the 17th. And of course, as we know, it didn't happen. And it's not
Yeah.
happening this year neither. So,
So I'm wondering, Jim, it's one thing when you decide you're not going to tour anymore, and then it's quite another when you're basically told you're not going to tour anymore, in the instance of this pandemic. So has that changed your and the band as a whole? Has it changed your outlook on possibly going out again?
oh, we are going out again.
Awesome.
We have shows booked in Europe starting June the 2nd. Whether or not they're going to happen, but they are booked.
But
We
they
have
are booked.
they're all summer festivals and stuff over there, and then a European tour starting in Finland in October. So, but yeah, again, who knows what's going to happen?
Right. Well, that's still a few months away, and anything can happen then.
Yep.
And so was touring all those years, like when it was just nonstop touring, what was that like for you? Was it just something that you loved to do and never got tired of it? I imagine it's just exciting when you're touring all over Europe. And so what was all that touring like, Jim?
Well, at first it's definitely exciting, and then when you're on the road for almost 2 years, it can really burn you out. So we all did get a little burnt out. I mean, we were constantly on the road, and but as soon as you're home for a couple of weeks, you're dying to get back out
Then
again.
you're itching. Isn't that the truth? Eh?
Yeah.
You get on the road and it's grueling and you miss your family and then you get home and but boy, you guys will sure be ready to tour when all of this is over. Can we talk a little bit about the 10,000 Days album?
Sure. What do you want to know?
I'm interested in the title because there's an interesting backstory about that title.
Well, that was at that time Mike was leaving to go home to stay with his family. He had a young son, Saren. So 10,000 days is roughly 30 years, and at that time, that was how long the band had been together. So that's how that came about.
That's interesting, right? That's an interesting little fact. I'm not so sure everybody would know about that, but it's kind of like a little hidden meaning behind the titles.
Yeah.
Right. And so I really want to talk about the new album. I love this album because it's like this homage to 44 years of amazing hit songs, and it's acoustic. And just go ahead and talk about the album. Was this something that was planned pre-COVID, or was it just
Well,
taking advantage of it?
no, what happened was when we did the 2017 tour with Jim, we formed another band called Pockets, and we opened for ourselves acoustically. So
Right.
at first people didn't know who this Pockets was until Michael Sadler and I walked out on stage and started playing pianos, and kept everyone
People,
after you're
people
on
are thinking,
stage.
what's going on?
But then, of course, the secret's out after the first show, of course, these days. But
Right.
so we did that, and it went over really well. And we had recorded every single show acoustically and filmed it all. And then we got home and realized, man, that's a lot of work trying to go through every song, film and everything. And, live, you're going to have to make lots of corrections because of the tune guitars and clarinets and this and that.
Right.
So we decided, why not make a real album? So we actually started it a year before the pandemic, or 6 months before the pandemic. And and Jim, that's why Jim was involved, and that's why Dusty isn't involved in it, because he wasn't even around then. So
Right.
and I spent quite a lot of time down at Jim's place recording my parts. So I got all my basic parts, bed tracks and clarinet and piano and my vocals done there. And then when this happened, that's when we all were in our own places doing what was left over to do solos and things like that. And so it was a kind of bit of both. Michael did all his vocals at his house. So, but
It's got to really change the dynamic of the recording of the process of making an album when you have to do it all individually.
Yeah, but when you listen to it, it sounds like we're all in the same room. So
you would never know. I agree.
That's exactly what we wanted.
And Jim, I feel really fortunate to have been able to scoop you up right at this time because the album literally just got released last week.
Yeah, last Friday, yeah.
Right. And of course it's available on all the platforms. And you brought some outside musicians in for this album as well, Jim, for the for the fiddle and the cello parts. And can we talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, Jim found Shane Cook through one of our old roadies, who was he worked with, and he happened to live in London, Ontario, which is nearby where Jim is, and we wrote out some parts for him, but he was able to read what we wrote, but he's also able to improvise. He's a Celtic player, so he knows all the jig stuff and everything. And Jim, myself, and Ian are Scottish, Irish, so that's our background. So that worked out. And then the cello player Stephanie, she is friends with my best friend Barry Connors, who's the drummer in Toronto. So who I also play with. So when I can.
Nice.
So he introduced me to her, and I sent her the parts, and she played them perfectly, and that's it. And we still haven't got our copies of the album yet. And I promise.
What?
Yeah.
Don't they know who you are?
It's always like that.
And so, Jim, do you have any favorite songs? You probably have a ton. I know a few of my favorite SAGA songs, but I'm curious to know, are there any songs that you've done that are just your favorites, and can you tell us why?
Not really. I have some that aren't my favorites, but no, I don't really
like any that are your favorite to play.
I love playing Corkentilus. It's an instrumental, pretty intense. I love playing that and Conversations, both instrumentals. And we just started doing on the last tour a song that we never played that I wrote about my dad when he passed away, and it's called Days Like These. And we started doing it on the last tour, and it went over really well. I'm really enjoying playing that.
What a beautiful tribute. What an absolutely beautiful tribute. And your music, when we talk about intense, and I describe your music as having this wall of sound, it really is intelligent music. And I think, my friends and I were talking about this week and about SAGA this week, and I said they're musicians, and that means that fans will love the music because it's amazing, but other musicians will appreciate the talent that what exactly goes behind producing one of these songs.
Oh, yeah, we have a lot of mutual admirers, like me and Mark Gladstone. We're good friends, and
good friend of mine. Yeah,
he's a great guy and great keyboard player also. And yeah, we're always, some musicians are kind of standoffish and they can be jealous of each other, but we aren't like that at all. So we're just nice Canadian boys, and
I love that. And we talked, and Mark Gladstone's been on the show, and we were talking. I've talked about that with a lot of my guests. There is, you're going to find the odd musician that's standoffish and very competitive, but I find really a lot of the Canadian music scene is, out east, and they're very supportive of one another. There's this community that's kinder to each other, I feel like, and I feel like even more so over the past year. when the things are going well and we're touring and all that. But now I think the pandemic has really made people just reassess what's important and reassess their lives. And has it been that way for you? Has it been kind of a time to reflect and just, like, I know for myself, what I'm getting at is, for me, what's important then, what's important to me now is much different, because things have been put in perspective. And I think it
Uh,
makes for,
yeah, I think
it
you're
just,
right. I think we're all appreciating what we had, and we want it back. So, and I think
right.
everyone's willing to help each other out to do that here in Canada, anyway. So,
Absolutely. Is there a difference, Jim, in between Canadian audiences and European audiences? I mean, aside riots and bonfires aside.
in
But
Europe,
is it
there's
really different
definitely
touring in Europe?
touring in Europe is definitely different than here, and they are definitely a lot more lively. And here they're more polite, and like
Reserved, right?
yeah, it's more reserved in Canada, but it doesn't mean they don't like it. It's just the way that we are here. So, but in Europe, they go nuts. Not quite like the Spanish, but they go nuts.
And that's maybe a good thing, Jim. I'm thinking that might be a bit of a hazard.
Yeah,
And yeah, but your fans, the one thing I'm so impressed by is that your fans are so solid. And there's been several member changes in the band, as would happen when a band has been together for 40 plus years. But your fans have just stuck right there through the whole, changes, and your fans are extremely loyal.
yeah, and that's why we do it, and it's because of them, and they're amazing, and a lot of fans that we've known for years have become good friends. Like I go to their houses now. So it's
Right.
almost like a big family. And couples have met through Saga and got married and had kids. They meet
Oh,
at
wow.
concerts. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's like a big, cult, if you will.
Right. And
But a
Bruce's
nice
Saga
one.
babies. a
A
nice
nice
a nice Canadian cult. We were talking before the show, and more we were joking with each other, and more that there's no illegal alien marriages, there's no addiction and recovery, and there's no babies and all this kind of stuff. You guys really are just a nice Canadian band that through a lot of hard work and extreme talent just made it huge.
yeah.
And I'm wondering, sorry, go ahead.
No, nothing. No, go ahead.
And this has just become my favorite question. So when you're in the band and you start to see that it's going to be huge, what's that like? With that moment, we realize this is going to be big.
Well, it creeped up so slowly that it was just all of a sudden there. So there was no time to prepare for it, really.
It just is, right?
Yeah, it
Suddenly,
just yeah, from it gradually, went up, and then all of a sudden you're playing Maple Leaf Gardens. Which was my first gig ever in Toronto, live show.
wow. To kick
And I
off with a bang, hey?
yeah, I have pictures of me at the Gardens when I was in high school with my girlfriend back then, watching Supertramp and other stuff. And little did I know, in just
Lovely.
like 3 or 4 years, I'd be playing there. But I told her I would.
Surreal. And I'm sure she's an ex-girlfriend now, so yeah, it must just blow people away. I have a favorite song actually that I'd like to ask you about. So "Wind 'Em Up" is one of my favorite songs, and again, the reason I'm such a fan of it is because it just creates such imagery for me. It's a song about addiction, and I'm very familiar with addiction, and so that song is written almost as if it was written by Aldo. Aldo, the alter ego in the song, who has this gambling addiction. How did that song come about?
Well, we were in Maidenhead, England. We had rented a big house in Maidenhead, and we lived there for 6, 7 months, and every day just worked on that album. and Wind 'Em Up was just another piece of music to us that we worked on, and I remember coming up with some of the chords, and then I showed Michael them because I was going up to Scotland to visit my relatives, and they would continue working, and then it just, no one knew it'd be a song like that. And then Jim, I remember we would every night we would go down to the pub right on the River Thames and have a couple pints and then talk about what we did the day. And then once a week we'd have a day off while Jim and Michael mainly would write lyrics. And I wasn't really into that at the time. I was still new, so I didn't really, I didn't feel comfortable. So, and Jim, I remember him just walking up and down the road next to the Thames River with his Walkman on and a notepad and writing the lyrics to Wind 'Em Up. I'll always remember that. So that was his idea for the lyrics.
And does it come from a real character? Like somebody that somebody knew?
No.
That surprises me because it's the lyrics are written, so well that you would just swear that it was a real person and somebody who has experience in that sort of stuff. And I love the keyboard part at the beginning. It's got, this racy keyboard part. And again, because I'm always about imagery, I love songs that can immediately take me and transport me to a situation or a time or a place. And when I listen to that song, and it's also an acoustic version featured on Symmetry album as well. That keyboard part at the beginning reminds me of his heart racing, and you can almost feel what he's feeling, the person that the song is written about, although, how his heart is racing and he's hoping for the big win. And that's an art form when you can write songs that take people visually on a journey. I think, that's talent. And there's a whole lot of that in SAGA. There's just a whole lot of it.
And I don't think we've ever written about any one person, just
right.
They're just mainly just stories,
Right. Well, definitely some storytelling going on. And do you have any advice, Jim? For the people that might be wanting to start out in this business, it's a different climate now. The tours aren't there the way that, just the music live performance isn't the way it used to be. But what advice do you have for young viewers that might be watching that are getting started in the industry?
Well, the main thing, I wish the young people would learn how to play their instruments and learn how to sing, because there's not a lot of that going on right now. It's almost an inconvenience for people to really learn their craft. They just want all of a sudden they want to be a star, and it's all about image. And I just wish people would, really try and learn how to play and sing again,
Right.
That's my
and now, sorry, what was that? I missed what you. Sorry, there's an overlap on here, but and this is the time, right? I mean, if you're a musician, now's the time to practice your craft. Practice. Right.
Yep. And I hurt my hand, so I'm not able to play at the moment. But every day I try to learn something new about my recording program, so I'm doing that to keep myself busy. But I've been writing a lot all year, so there will be something new at some time eventually.
Right. Well, so much to look forward to, Jim. And I know there was one performance at in Mississauga. It was at the Classic Bowl McBowl concert series with Honeymoon Suite and Harlequin. And we're just going to hope that's going to happen. That's in May.
Yeah, I haven't heard any more about it.
So that's before the European tour. Yeah. Well, you know what, fans, check out the Symmetry album. It's on all the normal platforms, and we just can't wait to see what you have coming out next. And we certainly hope there's going to be another tour. And I just can't thank you enough for joining us today, Jim. And I'm wishing you all continued success.
It was my pleasure, and nice to meet you. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'll expect free tickets, Jim.
Absolutely.
You take care. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Etcetera live on the Vibe with Jim Gilmour of SAGA here. Check out the new album, Symmetry. It's available now. All the usual platforms. I'm sure you're going to absolutely love it. It's a beautiful homage to all your favorite SAGA songs, done in just a fresh new acoustic way. And until we see you next week, everybody, take care of yourself and stay safe and sane. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Cheers, Jim.